Hey guys, today's video is going to be a follow-up of my last video, which was talking about replacing these two sequencers in this furnace. Now this one is going to be checking how to check your 3 heating elements in this one. Of course, this one has 3. A lot of them will have either less than that or more than that, but this is getting into checking the heating elements and your 3 thermostats here, which is there's a couple different ways to do this. I'm going to show you the online and offline methods, I call them. The first thing we want to do is we want to check it with the furnace running. So let me go ahead and get it started here. Okay, I just heard that last sequencer kick in. Okay, so obviously there's power on everything right now, but so I got to be careful here because it's easy to get into the power, and I don't recommend messing with anything when the power is on unless you're a licensed electrician and feel comfortable doing this. But basically, one of your most important tools in working on furnaces and stuff is an amp clamp meter, and there's a simple reason for that. And if you look, this is your bottom element, your middle element, and your top element. There's 2 wires hooked in each, and there's 220 across it. Well, what this does, this checks for 2 things. If you put your amp meter across here, I don't know if you can see it or not, but we're drawing 23.2 amps on this wire, 20.4, 19.8. So now you got current flowing through all 3 of your heating elements. If you did this, and you found one of them that got 0 on it, no amperage at all, and either that element's burned out, or you got a bad sequencer, or your thermostat's open. So there's 3 possible reasons. But if you think your furnace ain't putting out enough heat, check your heating elements, make sure there's current flowing through them. If there is, then you might have some other type of problem. Now, if you check that and you get one that don't show a reading on it, then the first thing you want to do is come over here, and like I said again, you got to be careful because the power is on, obviously. And if you got power here, see there's 231 volts right there, which is 220. And so if you got this on and your heating element ain't on because you ain't getting no current through it, then the element is more than likely burned out. Follow the offline testing I will show next to test resistance on the element. If you get 0 volts across the element, then check across the thermostat. If you get 240, then the thermostat is open, either kicked off due to high temperature or it's bad. If it's 0 volts and 0 across the element, then it's either a fuse or a sequencer. But you can check your fuses the same way. Just ground one out. You're getting 110 here. 110 here, 110 here, 110 here, so you're getting a reading off all of them. If you want to check them like this, you can too. You're getting your 220 here, and your 220 across these. Okay, now we're going to do the offline testing. But that's basically all. You check all 3 of your heating elements the same way as I showed the first one. I'll give it a few minutes here to cut off. You'll hear one sequencer shut off, that shuts one element off, and the other one shuts the other 2 elements and your boiler off. So right now I'm drawing 62 amps across it right now. One element shuts off, it'll go back down to about 40. And if your thermostat, right there is one, and now it's down to 42, so you got 2 elements on and the boiler running right now. Now if your furnace ever runs like this for a real long time and still putting out heat, but it's not shutting off like that, so now we're drawing 0. And then your problem is probably your sequencers, because if they start acting up, sometimes they won't shut off like that. That's what the other furnace was doing. It kept running forever. Finally had to shut the breaker off to turn it off. And that's the only way I could get it to shut off. But yeah, the 2 most important tools, besides a screwdriver, for working on furnaces is a voltmeter and an amp clamp. And you want one that probably goes up to 200 amps. This is about the cheapest one you can get right here, and it's about all you need for working on this. And voltmeter's handy too. But now I'm going to talk about the offline. So power's off now. I just pulled the main disconnect out. You put your voltmeter on ohms or continuity. That's 0 ohms right here. So now you can check your fuses. That fuse is good. That fuse is good. That fuse is good. And that fuse is good. Okay. So now the next thing you want to do. This, I'm just going to show one element, but you do the same thing on all of them. Unhook one side of it and read across it. You're getting 8 ohms. That's about right. And if you didn't get a reading here, if this was just open, say an overload like this, then the element is burning too, which can be fixed if you need to do a temporary fix just to get it going again. I have a video showing how to do that. Or you can just replace the bad element. So you can check this one the same way. You see there's power going through this, so everything's good on this. If you don't get a reading across the thermostat, which will show infinite or overload on the voltmeter, then the thermostat is either open from being too hot or it's bad. If you do get a reading, then either the sequencer is bad or a fuse is bad. Do the online test to determine this. Now I got another video that talks about fixing this type of heating element. The heating element I used in the video came out of a dryer, but it's basically the same. All heating elements are very similar. And it's a few tips to save you a ton of money and get a lot more life out of it before you have to replace it. You may never have to replace it. That's a few tips on diagnosing the problems with the electric furnace. And like I said, there's really not a whole lot to these. Now if your heating elements if your sequencers kick on, your heating elements come on and they start clicking, that means you got something wrong with your blower. Sometimes they might have a separate fuse just for the blower, and it could be your blower motor bad or a bad capacitor or something like that. Now I will talk about one more thing while we're here. This is your 24 volt transformer right here. I'm going to put the block back in here. We should be able to diagnose it and see if it's getting power and putting power out. You gotta be careful if you put one of these in without the sheet metal. It's so easy to get into the fuse there. But we're gonna put it back on the voltage here, check here. And you can follow the orange wire here. This is where it's getting its hot. So if you touch this to the frame, there should be 120 volts on this, and there is. And this black here should be the ground for the secondary, but you should be getting 24 volts across one of these. Right there's 30 volts. So that's your 24 volt circuit that runs your thermostat and your sequencers. If you don't get 24 volts here, then either a fuse is blown or the transformer is burned up. And it's never exactly 24 volts. As you see, we're reading 30 volts off of it. The first thing to check, if all your fuses check good and your sequencers ain't clicking in, the thermostats aren't clicking, is to make sure you got power going to your thermostat, because you could just be as simple as your bad thermostat. So you can check your red and white wire. That's usually what the colors are. All you gotta do is put the meter across that, and if you can see it, see we're getting the 30 volts off of it, so we know the transformer's good. If you do that and there still ain't no power there, then it could be the coil burn out in one of the sequencers, or your transformers burn out. But if you got power here and the furnace ain't doing nothing at all, you can put these two wires together and make sure that it is your thermostat before you buy a thermostat, because as long as you got power here, it should be doing something. I mean, the sequencer should be at least kicking in. But yeah, it's just a few tips and tricks, and I am a licensed electrician, a journeyman, and but I'm not an expert on furnaces. I just know the basics on troubleshooting here, and I'm just using a few basic procedures I use on any type of electrical appliances to diagnose possible problems with. And like I said, it's really simple here what's going on, and it's usually easy to find what the problem is. But well guys, if you got any questions or comments, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So thanks for watching. Hey guys, today's video is going to be something I ain't really talked about before in any of my other videos, but this is information on how to replace your sequencers inside your electric furnace. And you can see this is a Coleman Presidential. It's an older model one. It's painted white because we painted it white. I'll show you why. We painted it white and brown because we made this base for it here in the garage. And it's basically just a big space heater, all we did with it. And it's not exactly safe, but it is efficient, because I mean all your heat's coming straight out of it. You don't have to worry about losing anything in the ductwork or anything. And of course we'll get the filter in the top here. It came originally set up like this. We used that aluminum tape, which is real good stuff, and put sheet metal on there and taped it up real good. But anyway, we decided to quit using it in the garage because it just uses too much electric. This thing draws 60 amps. A couple of years ago I had to take them out, take the sequencers out that was in this one, which were new ones because I had to put them in, and I put them in our other furnace. Now I'm fixing it up for a buddy of mine, and he bought the new sequencers for him. And don't pay the high dollar price for these. Get them off eBay or Amazon, something like that. You can get them dirt cheap compared to what it costs on a local place, unless you absolutely have to have them. Anyway, here's the specs on it, and you can see the model number here, 3500 A816, 54,000 BTU, and it draws, like I said, 60 amps on a 220 circuit. And it's a real nice furnace, but like I said, it's just basically too much for the garage here. We just use propane heaters now. I already got there's no wires hooked to it because we ain't used it for a while. I hooked my welder up instead. But you want to, first thing you want to do is turn your breaker off. Then pull this out. This is your main disconnect in the furnace. There's several different designs on these, but these are the U-shaped ones. And when you pull that out, it disconnects all your wiring in here. So if you can't get to the breaker or something, just pull that out and you should be safe. But I recommend shutting the breaker off just to be on the safe side. But this does shut off all your internal wiring. These two wires is for the thermostat. This is 24 volt thermostat. These are 24 volt as well. That's the main thing you got to watch. One of these ain't the exact same replacement as what's in it. But it was all I could get because for some reason the other number didn't want to come up. But let me go ahead and take this sheet metal apart. You just got several screws here. You just got to take this side loose to actually wire it up. So we're just going to concentrate over here. Okay, it looks like a mess, but don't panic because it's actually pretty simple here, really. But on a lot of them, on the inside panel here, it'll have a schematic in there. This one don't for some reason. It might peel off because you can see this one got some water damage. It sat in the basement for a long time before we got it. But anyway, here's your two sequencers. So this is your small one here. Like I said, the power's off. It's not even hooked up to anything. And this is your bigger one. And right now will be a good time to look at them and make sure all your connections are the same. And some of these will mount different. You can see these are on individual plates, whereas that one's on a plate all by itself. And this is actually out of another furnace, so the numbers are probably even different on it. But these are still working, but for some reason it wasn't kicking the third element in. When one of them, I don't know which one is the third element on this, but it was only drawing 40 amps on the other furnace. And I got thinking, well, it's got 3 heating elements in here, and it was only drawing 40 amps, so there's 20 amps missing because it had the same specs as this one. And that's when we realized that one of the sequencers wasn't working. So we changed that, and then we got full heat out of it. I'll talk a little bit about the heating element. I'm going to do a separate video on how to check the heating element, but you can see this is one element, and you can basically see how it is. And these are your thermostats in case something catches on fire or something overheats. This will shut off each individual element. And there's really nothing major going on. Up here's your 24 volt transformer for your thermostat, and your blower plugs in up here. It could have different speeds on it because it does have a jumper down here. You might be able to jumper to get the other speeds on it, but as far as I know, it's just a single speed motor. Because the other furnace we got, it's basically the same as this one. It's a Coleman too. But anyway, you see these are your main fuses here, and you get your 3 elements here. And basically these are just switches that hook in series with the element. The way something heats up, it'll shut one of them off at a time. Don't make the mistake that a lot of people do. Don't just start ripping the wires out and try to hook them up. Change one wire at a time, just like you're changing plug wires on a vehicle. That way you won't get nothing mixed up. I'll try to show a little bit of what I'm talking about. I'll put the camera on the tripod here. But take a picture first, and while I'm talking I'll put in a few pictures that might show the wiring a little bit better for you. That way you can see what's going on better, because they're all going to be different. Some furnaces will have 3 of these, but they all change out the same basically. But just pay attention to that, and make sure that you take a picture first, unless you have a schematic to go by. But I find a picture is easier because you can actually see everything. And you got to pay attention to these brown and white wires on the top. That's what controls the that's what kicks these on and off. See, this is your ground on the bottom here. Hooks on the bottom terminal. Just a jumper here, and all that is a ground. And this blue wire should be what kicks the blower on and off. That should be what that's for. First thing I like to do is just take the plate out. Well, it gives you a little more flexibility and everything, where you can get a little more play out of the wire so you can actually get in there. And like I said, don't just start ripping the wires out. And you want to make sure it's oriented in the same way as your writings on here, because that's really all that matters, because they'll mount the same in here. Then you just want to take one wire at a time. I mean, if you took a picture of it and you feel confident, you can take everything loose, but I just find it much easier to do it like this. That way there's no chance of getting anything mixed up. You'll see that's one, you'll run into a few differences, like this one's straight, this one's sideways on that, but it don't really matter. Your brown will hook in up here. Your black. Black jumper, and this just connects your neutral to the next one. All that does. So this one's already changed. That's all it's connected to that one, and the rest of it hooks into the other one. The other one's got more wires than this one does. So if you're gonna have any problems, it's gonna be on this one here. But it's very similar, to be honest about it. And again, you just want to orient it the same direction. Some of them will be labeled. As you can see here, it's got the, those are just your switch contacts. And these are basically non-polarized, because it's just a coil wire in here, so you can hook it up this way or this way. It shouldn't really matter as far as that goes, because all these are switch contacts. And this is just a coil here, all this is. And these are just switch contacts. So, it shouldn't really matter, but I'm just trying to do it like this one is. And that'll sometimes happen. See, that sequence there just fell apart on me. And that's what happened to the ones that originally came out of this. They get so hot the plastic starts breaking down in them. Then you get springs and everything falling out of it. For some reason you run into a problem with both of them being mounted on the same plate, or both of them on individual plates. They're just pop riveted on. You can drill them out and change them over how you want them. Alright guys, I got everything hooked up here and everything's ready to go now, so I'm going to run a temporary wire to it and make sure everything works before we put it in the house. Okay guys, I got it hooked up for a temporary setup. You see I got a number 10 gauge wire. That's all I had laying around. And it'll work just for a couple minutes, just to say it will heat up, so make sure you use at least a number 6 gauge wire on this. But we're going to get ready to fire it up here. Get in and twist the thermostat wires together. flip the breaker. We'll see what happens. Either work or it'll blow up, one of the two on it. That's why it always pays to double check. This wire right here had a bad terminal on there. It wasn't even loose. It wasn't even on there. It was broke. Now let's try it again. Now I'm going to check to make sure all three elements are on. And they are. It's working, guys. The wire's not even getting warm. I figured that smaller wire would get warm, but it ain't. I tell you, when you get that set up like that, that puts out some serious heat coming out of there and get all the direct heat out of the furnace. It's basically just one big giant space heater when it's set up like this. That's actually a good setup, really. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, you know, it's not something safe, you know, but it is something just for an old garage or something, an old shed or something. It is something to consider. And if you want to save on power, you can actually unhook one or two elements and still get quite a bit of heat out of it. Let's make sure it shuts off right. Right now I just unhooked the two thermostat wires, so the elements should be kicking off. I think I just heard one kick off. Yeah, right there's one kick off right there. Yep, there she is. She's working, guys. Well, guys, if you got any questions or comments about sequencers, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. My next video is going to be talking about the heating elements in these, how to check them without having to take anything more apart than what's already apart here. Just check it with the wires here. So, but yeah, if you got any questions or comments, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching.